Hey y'all, it's Monday afternoon on April 26th and I am just now getting around to recording my April beginning of the month videos. So I got my coffee here and let's get started on this. Side note, I'm on heavy medication because I hurt my back taking a freaking shower last night and it is windy here today. I had to go rescue my porch furniture and bring it inside because I almost lost some of my pillows over the balcony. So if you hear it, it is what it is. I've just decided I'm gonna have wind in the background of all my videos. So. Hey y'all, it's Jen with Inklings and let's talk about my let's talk about my March wrap up. The books I read in March. Here is just a few. Most of these you will have seen a good chunk of them through some vlogs that I did for the 'Tis the Damn Readathon. But I did read several other books that weren't part of the readathon, but I think I vlogged about them too. I think I've got 3 vlogs that still need to go up. April's been weird. It's been a busy month. I haven't felt all that great. I have had a lot going on and this is what we're doing. We're just now getting to the March wrap up and my April TBR, so don't worry, eventually you'll get to see all the videos, but let's talk about these books. So I read a total of 10 books for the month, and I had a really super good reading month. 6 of the 10 were 5-star reads. I had a 4.5 star, 2 4 stars, and then a 3.5 star. So like I said, I had a really great reading month. 6 of the books I listened to the audiobook version of them, and then 3 I physically read. So my first book was Whiskey in a Teacup by Reece Witherspoon. This is her memoir. I listened to the audiobook version of this that I borrowed from my library. It was wonderful. I gave it 5 stars. It was quick, it was easy, it was just everything you would think that a Reece Witherspoon memoir would be. She talks about growing up in the South, she talks a lot about food, she talks a lot about Southern etiquette and kind of how that impacted her and how her grandparents played a huge role in developing who she is today. And if you really enjoy Reece Witherspoon, if you like her as a person or an actress, I definitely recommend that you pick this book up because it's just going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth look at Reece. Then the next book that I listened to was A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. I gave this one 3.5 stars, mainly because I am not as smart as Stephen Hawking, and it was very apparent when I was trying to listen to this book. I don't understand half of it. I am a very mathematical and scientifically minded person anyway. My degree is in math. I wanted to be a marine biologist. That was like my first, well, my second declared major in school. Living in Arkansas though, or growing up in Arkansas, we didn't have marine life to study. So, and at the time I couldn't go and relocate me and my family to the coast. So I decided on accounting instead. Space has always been something that's very interesting to me. I've always had a love for space. At one point in time, I wanted to be an astronaut. I mean, just all kinds of, you know, things that I have studied over the years just for a natural curiosity of. I understand a lot about this stuff, and I have no idea what Stephen Hawking was saying. The only thing I really remember is the part where he talks about a black hole, and if an astronaut got sucked into a black hole, he would immediately be ripped into millions of tiny pieces. And I guess that's trivia that I may need one day, but that's all I got out of this book. It was interesting, don't get me wrong, it was interesting. I just have no idea what he was talking about. And then the next book I picked up was Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I can't read this, look, it's so tiny in my bullet journal. Anyway, I gave this one 4 stars. I listened to this audiobook. I enjoyed it, but I was really kind of lost through a lot of it. The stories in it, it's told like in several different short stories. You follow several different families and family members. It's not until towards the end that you realize how they all interconnect, and that part of the storytelling aspect of it made me completely lost, and I had a hard time caring about some of the characters because I didn't understand how their story related to the other one, because like I said, I felt like I was reading several different short stories. I think there are 11 characters that we follow in different parts of family and the interactions, and it's really about, it covers a lot of different topics. There is the growing up black, and most of this takes place in England, Britain, but there are some parts of it that take place in the US. So there is the growing up and dealing with life being black, and then there's also some queer characters and how that impacts things. There is also familiar family abuse dynamics in it. Some of it is domestic partnership abuse, some of it is parental abuse. I believe there was some drug use in here. It covers a lot of different issues in it, and like I said, you don't really see how they all come together until the end. And I think that if I knew going into it that they were all connected, I would have had a little bit of a better experience. But again, like I said, it was still a 4-star read, and I do recommend that you read this book if that's something that you are interested in. But just keep in mind that it kind of starts out feeling like different short stories of different characters, and you don't really realize how they're related until you get to the end of, you know, the last little bit of the book. Next, I read Across the Green Grass Fields by Seanan McGuire. Across the Green Grass Fields by Seanan McGuire. This, I did end up picking this up on audiobook, and I don't usually do that. I usually physically read these, but I was in a time crunch. This was actually the February Books and Lala book pick for me for the book with a color in the title. And so I was really behind on reading it, and so I grabbed the audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. Again, it's a 5-star read for me. I don't think I've given any of her books under 5 stars in this series. I just love it so much. In this book, we follow a child who doesn't quite fit in. She is a little girl who enjoys kind of getting dirty and boyish stuff. She really enjoys horses. Her best friend is what I would call a very prissy girl, but she's also very much a bully, and she ostracizes another one of their group members because she wasn't girly enough, because she was playing with a snake, and bullied her for several years. And so in this world, our main character falls in, the world that she goes into is one where horses and centaurs and creatures like that are very alive, and they are the ruling planet. They're the ruling species. They don't get a lot of humans in there. The humans are kind of their rulers. They see them as ones to come and bring the world together. Humans only come into, they only see a human when their world needs saving, or something heroic or apocalyptic or something like that. So I really enjoyed the storyline. I liked the themes in this one. I liked the moralistic underlying tones in it about animals and creating your own world and ruling together instead of being separated. It's a very politically heavy without being politically heavy, if that makes any sense. So I enjoyed it. Again, I highly recommend this series. This is the 6th book, and I've loved every book that's in this series. The next book that I listened to was The Vanishing Half by Bennett, and this was a 5-star book. I love The Mothers by Bennett, and The Vanishing Half was even better than that. If you've not picked up a Bennett book, pick one up. Either one, they're amazing. Just the way she tells a story and how things flow together and interrelate is just superb. This book in particular is about 2 twins who are from this small town in I think it was Louisiana or Alabama. I don't remember which one, but it's kind of like a no-name town. Everyone in the town is black, but they are very light-skinned black, and they take pride in being light-skinned. They don't want anybody dark-skinned there, and so they get a little bit more privilege because a lot of them are very white passing. And so these twin girls run away when they're about, I want to say 14, 15 years old. They run away to New Orleans, and after they have seen their father brutally beaten and murdered by some white people from another town, so they run away a few years later and they go to New Orleans. One of the twin sisters ends up becoming white passing and lives her life as a white woman, marries a white man, has what appears to be a very white baby, and then the other sister marries a very extremely dark-skinned man, and her child is described as almost blue-black, that very, very dark black. And so the sisters, they end up losing touch over the time because the one that is white passing and pretending to be white does not want her secret to be found out, because this was like the 1960s where race was very, very much still heavily entrenched in racism. And so the dynamics between that and how they find each other and come back to each other, and the lessons that they brought, how their daughters interact and find out about each other, it's all very woven together very well. And I think this is a subject matter that was done very well, showing the different aspects of living white and living black. And even though one side is very different from the other, and how prevalent racism really is. Okay, so the next book I read was A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sara Bernard. This book was also a 5-star. I read the physical copy of it. It is amazing. It is a young adult book that talks about differences in disability. The main character is a selective mute young lady. She's mute due to trauma and anxiety. And she grows up very isolated and almost bullied by her classmates, and misunderstood by her family even. Her dad is real supportive, the mother is not. She's going through therapy to help her, but even the mother is not real supportive. She thinks that she just needs to get over it and just deal with it and start speaking. The love interest in this is a deaf boy, and I mean, he's been deaf all his life, but he does speak a little bit, and our main character that is mute, selectively mute, she has learned some BSL over the years, and so she is able to communicate with the main character. I can't think of their names right now, but I absolutely love this book. Absolutely love this book. I highly recommend it. I think it handles disability very well. I think it handles the deaf culture and the way that interacts in everyday life very well. The way that the hearing interact with the deaf community, and the way they project their own ableism onto a deaf individual. I thought that was handled very well. Like I said, I just love this book, and it's just a cute love story as well. And there's a cute relationship between our main character and her best friend. I can't say anything bad about this book, so definitely should pick this up. The next book I read was Graffiti Moon by Cath Crowley. I love Cath Crowley. This book was one of the books I used for the Becca's Bookopoly-a-thon, read-a-thon, and also this was my BookTube Spin #1 pick. So, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I did read the physical copy of this. Cath Crowley wrote one of my other favorite books, and I just love it. It's Words in Deep Blue. If you haven't read it, go pick it up. It's amazing. But this book follows a girl who is very interested in art. She wants to be artistic. She's interested in the art world. She gets involved in glass blowing, and there in the town there is someone called Shadow and Poet. It's two people, Shadow and Poet, who are graffiti artists. Shadow does the graffiti and Poet does the words, the poetry, usually little short poetry on the art, and they work as a team. So this book takes place in a short period of time, I think 24 hours really, but there are glimpses going forward and backwards between the two characters, but the main plot of the story takes place in about 24 hours. Our main character is looking for Shadow, and what she doesn't realize is that the boy that she is looking for Shadow with is actually Shadow. And just the way it comes together, her and this boy have a history, and so she is like, I don't like you, but it turns out he's Shadow, and he is really everything that she thinks Shadow is, and they end up, you know, kind of falling in love. There is some violence in here, there's some abuse, there is some neglect, there are some bad decisions made here, but I think that's all I'm going to say. This takes place in Australia. Cath Crowley is an Australian author, and I just really love the way she tells a story and her writing style. The topics she deals with are harder topics, but she does so in a way that is very, not lighthearted, that's not the right word, but she deals with these in a way that's very accessible. I gave it 5 stars if I didn't mention that already. So the next book that I read was Heartstoppers by Alice Osman. This is a graphic novel. Obviously I read it, physical copy of it, because I don't think that you can have a graphic novel as an audiobook, but maybe you can. But this, I just really enjoyed this story. it is very much kind of a neutral artistic color palette. It follows Charlie and Nick, who are very different. Charlie is a junior, I believe. I don't know. He's in a grade younger than Nick, but Charlie is openly gay. He is out. He is in a relationship with another boy who is not really out, and is also a little abusive. And he's tired of it, and so because he doesn't want to be a secret, so they kind of break up, but this guy doesn't want to take no for an answer. Well, Charlie gets paired with Nick in a science project. Nick is a rugby player. Nick has convinced Charlie to come out for rugby because they need a fast runner on there, and so he does. He gives it a go, really loves it, and him and Nick form a really close friendship. Nick, however, is questioning his own sexuality. Is he bisexual? Is he gay? Is he straight? So that's the journey we follow in this book, and it is super cute and super sweet and super heartbreaking and super wonderful and heartwarming, and it's amazing. And I just love this. I love Nick and Charlie so much. 100% a convert of this. It's definitely worth all the hype you've heard about it. The next book I read was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and we did this as the group read book for the 'Tis the Damn readathon, and we did do a live show on this, so I will link that down below if you want to hear our thoughts on this book in a little bit more in depth. But I gave it 4.5 stars. The one thing that I didn't like as much was it felt like the ending wasn't wrapped up enough. I don't mind the ambiguous ending, but there was just a few things that I wish had been explored a little bit more. And this one does have an epilogue in it. The epilogue is stupid. Don't read it. It just doesn't make any sense with the storyline. But this is a kind of a murder mystery, kind of a love story, kind of a lot of different things. I don't know really how to describe this book fully. It follows our main character, Miss De Winter. She is telling the story of her life and meeting Mr. De Winter and moving into the Manderley. It takes place, you know, in the English countryside, and Mr. De Winter's first wife has unexpectedly died. She, we know this from the beginning. It's been about a year, and he and the new Mrs. De Winter meet at this little inn where they are, well, I don't even know, it's probably this fancy hotel, but that's where they meet, and he proposes to her and says, come live with me at Manderley, instead of going off to the US with your cranky lady that you're the mistress for. Not mistress, is that the right word for it? Like assistant, I don't know, handmaid, I don't know what you call it, but she was miserable and she didn't want to go the US, so she agrees to marry Maxim and they go off to Manderley. Well, when she gets there, things are a little uncomfortable because she feels the ghost of Rebecca in everything in the house. All the servants, everybody talks about how beautiful she is, and the new Mrs. De Winter just doesn't know how to do this. She wasn't high class and you know, highborn. She's kind of a orphaned peasant girl almost. I don't know if that's really what she is, but this wasn't the world that she was born into, and so she doesn't really know how to act, and she's very timid and very meek and very mild at the beginning, and just kind of lets whoever handle things, doesn't really take over the duties. Just, if that's the way Rebecca had it, then that's the way we'll continue to do it. Well, Mrs. Danvers, Rebecca's maid, she is not happy with this situation at all, and makes life miserable for the new Mrs. De Winter. And so, and of course in there we learn a little bit more about Rebecca's death, and there's some characters that you think are going to be important that, you know, that are involved. And so the twist at the end of this was something that I did not expect at all. I did not see it coming, which was great because normally I can predict it, but I definitely enjoyed this book a lot more than I expected to. It had that eerie, atmospheric setting and feel to the whole book. It was really enjoyable. I did end up listening to this as an audiobook, which made it even more kind of that creepy and ominous, eerie atmosphere, which was great. So I enjoyed it. And the final book that I listened to this to for the month of March was Little Bee by Chris Cleave. I gave this book 4 stars. I actually had originally read this book back in 2008, and I didn't enjoy it as much then. I gave it 3 stars at the time. But this was my book club book pick for the month of March, and so because I couldn't remember a whole lot about it in details, I did go ahead and re-listen to it, and I picked up on a little bit more. My experiences in life, I think, probably helped me enjoy it more. But this follows a refugee from Nigeria who witnessed a murder, and the white couple from England who kind of helped save her, and then she ran off and immigrated to Britain and finds them again. But this story is very tragic, even with knowing that she escaped tragedy there. Her sister did not, the rest of her family didn't, and Little Bee is just kind of an orphan in the world. She gets out of the immigration hold tank where she spent 2 years, and she goes off to find the people who saved her at the time on the beach in Nigeria. And that's, I don't want to give much more of the story because I think that's an important part of this story, but there is definitely some content warnings that if you need content warnings, that you will want to look up. I don't want to give any of that away because that kind of plays a big part in the story itself. But be sure and look them up if you need it, because there are some very strong, very graphic, very detailed situations that could be very upsetting if you need content warnings for those. That's all I'm going to say about that. But like I said, it is very much it's a story about immigration and the tragedies that happen and why people flee other countries to come to the US or to come to Britain to get away from these horrible situations. And that wraps up all the books that I read in March. So let me know if you have read any of these books, and if you've enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. It helps me know if you are enjoying my content or if you are not. What you're going to see on the screen now is going to be a link to some other videos of mine. One is going to be a playlist of my past wrap-ups, and the other one is going to be a video that YouTube thinks that you would enjoy of mine. So be sure and let me know if they picked you out a good one. And until next time, I appreciate you watching, and I will talk to you later.